Hello, welcome back live to Westminster. You are watching The Take. Well, we can speak now to the Shadow Secretary of State for Education, Bridget Phillipson. Thank you very much for being on the programme. We've been talking about the Chancellor Rishi Sunak's speech to the CBI. He said that the government does stand ready to do more to help families with the cost of living crisis. What do you want to see?
Well, I don't quite know what he's waiting for. I mean, it's all very good and well to say that he's standing ready, but families are absolutely desperate right now. They urgently need help. So Labour has said that we think the government should bring forward a windfall tax on oil and gas producers, who by their own admission have got more money than they know what to do with. That will provide immediate help right now. You know, I hear from pensioners who've had to turn off the heating for weeks now because they can't afford to heat their homes, parents going without meals because they can't afford to look after their children, and they're making desperate choices. And they rightly expect that in those circumstances, the government will act immediately. Instead, we've had, the government telling people, various ministers saying, work more hours, buy value goods, a litany of kind of excuses. I think it's insulting and out of touch, and we need action now.
It's clear that, Labour is really pushing the idea of a windfall tax, and by all accounts, it is a relatively popular policy as well. But I just wonder, this is the biggest cost of living crisis since records began, actually. Inflation up 9%, 40-year high. To put it into context, the windfall tax in the North Sea is going to raise £2 billion at best. Labour's Green New Deal would cost £28 billion every year. You're going to need 14 of them just to pay for the Green New Deal. I mean, don't you need something else in the locker, not just a windfall tax? What's the big idea?
Well, the windfall tax would provide that immediate support to families and pensioners right now. I think it's only a matter of time, by the way, until the government finally, concede the inevitable and follow Labour's plan.
But what's the big idea? You want an emergency budget. You're going to need more than a windfall tax in that, aren't you? What else was in your locker?
And Labour's Green Investment Pledge would make sure that we properly insulate our homes. We know that there are 19 million homes across the country that aren't properly insulated, so we are more exposed than many other nations because of that problem we've got around insulated homes. But, for example, take childcare, another area where families are facing real pressure at the moment. Our youngest children at nursery, but also right around the school day too. Labour's Children's Recovery Plan would pump in investment to early years for our most disadvantaged children. We'd also deliver breakfast clubs and after-school activities. That would provide real help to families right now.
And is the money from borrowing? For the childcare and the Green New Deal, is that from borrowing?
So what the government set out in their COVID response was they allocated money for that response, for the COVID response. We would have made that decision to prioritise support for children and families, which would have gone towards our children's recovery plan. We all know what children have gone through during the pandemic, the sacrifices that were made, and we know the impact it's had on their learning. But alongside that, right now, families are really facing the squeeze. So if there were extra help now on childcare, that would make a massive difference.
OK, now, I just want to talk to you a little bit about Westminster. Now, a Conservative MP arrested on suspicion of rape. Now, of course, we can't comment on the individual cases. It's very important not to. But it does feel like there's been an awful lot of stories, from sexual harassment claims to MPs resigning for looking at porn to the most serious allegations of all. Is there a particular problem in Westminster with this kind of behaviour?
Well, I think it does take you to that conclusion, given what we've seen in recent weeks. I mean, I am troubled that the whip doesn't appear to have been withdrawn in the case that you mentioned initially. I think what we also saw more recently that's given rise to the by-election in Wakefield was a Conservative MP obviously been convicted of very serious offences, but again, where action should have been taken sooner. I think, there is a clear responsibility that all of us in public life are held to high standards, but I think clearly, given what we've seen in recent weeks, there is a problem there that needs addressing. And this isn't just about the conduct of MPs. Of course, Westminster is a workplace for thousands of people, and they have a right to feel safe.
What should happen? Do we need to talk about closing bars, for example? What should happen?
I don't think that's the issue. I think it comes to really a fundamental issue around power in our society. I mean, Parliament reflects some of the wider problems we see in society around sexism and misogyny that need to be tackled. And yes, there are changes, I think, that still could be made around the standards system in Parliament. But actually,
what does that mean, though? Like, what kind of change should happen?
Well, I think there have been, I was involved in some of that as part of the Standards Committee. We have made improvements, but I think we need people to feel confident in coming forward where they have concerns about conduct. Because, as I say, Westminster isn't just about MPs. Actually, there are thousands of people who work there, and they, like everyone else, have got the right to be in a safe workplace.
Just to show you this tweet quickly, I think I can do I'm going to whiz around this way instead. Here we go. Right. Michael Fabricant, the Conservative MP. I'm expecting a strong turnout of Conservative MPs at Prime Minister's Questions today, not only to demonstrate their strong support for Boris, but also to prove they are not the one told by the Chief Whip to stay at home. I'll be there. And then a little emoji as well. Is this a fair enough tweet, or do you think that it's in bad taste? What's your take on this?
I think it's an appalling taste. He seems to think it's funny, but I'm afraid, you know, serious sexual offences aren't a laughing matter. It's just completely unacceptable. I don't know what he's thinking. OK. So, you're not happy at all with that tweet there. Now, just finally, while I've got you, I have to ask you. Keir Starmer, of course, is being investigated by the police over allegations. He denies the allegations, but he has been investigated by police over allegations that he broke COVID rules. He said if he's found guilty, he would resign. If that happens, would you run? Well, there won't be a vacancy, so that's not going to come up. That is not an eventuality that's going to happen. I'm confident.
It's not a no. It's not a no.
Well, there isn't a contest. I look forward to seeing Keir Starmer as the next Labour Prime Minister in Downing Street, and I think we've got a really strong prospect at the next election, given the progress we've made in the local elections, and making that happen. That's all I'm interested in.
But if the ball were to come loose at the back of the scrum, as someone once said, would you pick it up?
But it's not going to happen. There's no vacancy. I mean, Keir's done nothing wrong. I'm confident that will be the outcome.
I mean, he has been investigated by the police, and he has said that he would resign if he's found guilty, to be fair. So, you know, it's not completely question from nowhere.
No, he's also been clear he's done nothing wrong. I'm confident he hasn't. He's a man who believes very strongly in following the rules that are set. I look forward to Keir as the next Labour Prime Minister.
OK, thank you very much for being on the programme today, Bridget Phillipson.